Right. Um, okay, I'm going to start rolling, and here we go. So, for all of you viewers at home, what you're witnessing now is a real call with a real bat mitzvah mother who's got a bat mitzvah coming up in, let's say, less than 2 months. Sarah, when is the bar mitzvah?
The bar mitzvah is in about a month.
About a month. Great. So, for people who aren't familiar with event planning or party planning, there are stages, and there's the stage when you still haven't chosen who's going to be your MC DJ for the event. Once you've chosen who that is and you've booked with your DJ MC, you are in a stage before your party planning session. Your party planning session, and then comes your party. Usually party planning sessions, it's just a one-time meeting, and there are things that you need to do to prepare for that meeting. Okay, so after you've booked your DJ MC, and you've sent in a deposit and you've gotten a confirmation of the date, that means that you've also already filled out an online form. So that online form has anywhere between 16 and 22 questions, and that's essential information that your DJ MC is going to need to know about what you've done, Sarah, right? Which tells us where is the event, when is the event, what's the name of the person organizing, what's the name of the child being celebrated, and some other ideas about your vision. Might have information about if there's a sound system there or not. All these are really, really important pieces of information that you've already filled out in what's called the onboarding phase. So now you're between, if I could draw a visual for you, you're after you've been onboarded, you're on board with your DJ MC that he or she is going to be there at your event for that date to make it meaningful and memorable, fantastically fun. And you guys have decided on a package. There might be some adjustments still if you want to do some add-ons or things like that. Now, before you have the party, well, let's talk about the objectives of the party planning meeting, okay? One is to fix the timeline, okay? And the other is to get into the song selection and the activity selection. That's pretty much all it is, and then there's also telling from your part if there's any special information that your DJ MC needs to know. Let's go through these. What did I just detail there? 3 or 4 areas. First one is timeline. Okay, so you've got your date, you've got your place, and now you're ready to come up with your timeline. Your timeline has 2 fixed points, right, Sarah? You've got your start time and your end time. And my mind works very metaphorically. So I think of the time in between as the canvas, and then what are you going to paint on it? Okay, so what are you, together with your DJ MC, who's also kind of your entertainment director, going to paint on your canvas? You want it to be filled with fun, safe, teachable moments, meaningful moments. Wonderful, memorable, fun. Those are the words that keep coming up for everybody. That's the whole point of putting this all together. Celebrate on the neurological level, high oxytocin levels, and a lot of bonding, and fun, and fun, and fun. So how are you going to fill that fun? You want to avoid any complications. So I'm going to give you tips here. Do not get a slushy machine. Do not get an iced coffee machine, because one slip and boom. There's a million complications that you could think of that we're not going to go into detail about all of them. Be careful with people who have allergies. If you're thinking about having, something that's, peanuts in your thing. And there's a million things. After done over 1,000 bar mitzvahs, I could tell you a million things. And some of them are like, well, that would never happen. You can't prepare for that. But you want to be a bit prepared. So you've got your start time and your end time. Now, this is a very frequently asked question. How do we decide our start time and end time? So the first criteria I would say is know yourself. If you're making a party for your kid and your kid loves to dance and you hate music and dancing, so you're not going to be happy unless you're really happy that your kid is happy if it goes late. And if you've got to go to work early the next morning, that's another factor. If you've got a lot of little kids to put to sleep and you're kind of looking at yourself as being at the end of your patience and tolerance and happy level, maybe you've got a lot of guests from out of town, you might want to end it on the earlier side. So what do I mean by the earlier side for a bar mitzvah? Of course, there's one other factor, which is, does the school have a curfew? Is there a bus that's having to go back, a hasa'ah? Usually bar mitzvahs go either from 6 to 10, 6:30 to 10:30, or 7 to 11. Bar mitzvahs don't generally go past 11. And any of those are fine for you to set as your bar mitzvah if you're having an evening bar mitzvah. Okay, now, a big factor really is if you have little kids. If you have little kids and you want to get them to bed and you feel like your patience is going to end, Now, the next question is how long to make the bar mitzvah. Again, we're dealing with the fixed points of the start time and the end time. So if it's only going to be boys, and you're going to throw me, say, a lot of people throw me just, here's boys, it's 30 boys, pizza, and ice cream, and, I'm going to say that's a 3-hour party. It's not going to be more because you're not going to have speeches, you're not going to have Kabbalat Panim, the boys see each other every day in school anyways, you just want to have 3 hours of fun. They're not going to be able to stay focused for longer than that, especially if it's their neighborhood, they can just walk home and go play video games or whatever. If you're going to have adults at the party, you want to have some speeches, you want to have some Kabbalat Panim time, maybe you want to have a slideshow, then you're going to figure more on 4 hours. Okay, so these are all the considerations that you can do before we start making our party planning meeting. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is the food. The last thing we'll talk about is the music selection and activities. But the food really kind of makes the punctuation. If you imagine that you're drafting up a paragraph, and that is your bar mitzvah, you've got to have punctuation somewhere there in the paragraph. So I highly recommend the best menu I see, and unless you're doing it in a fancy hall where they insist that you have this course and that course and this course, is having salads on the table really does not make a difference. People don't sit and start eating hummus and kruv and bread. I've never seen them do that. But having hors d'oeuvres of some kind or soup of some kind, yeah, you can even have soup in the summer. Having soup or hors d'oeuvres is a really good idea. So talk to your caterer about that. The next thing I recommend doing in the schedule is do a dance round. And I'm going to give kind of broad brushstrokes. I'm not going to get into, are we going to do a grand entrance to get to the dance round? Or are we going to come after a siyum? We're going to get to those details more in the party planning call. But to have a dance round, and then to have everybody sit down for the meal, then have speeches while people are eating, and then have another dance/activity round, then have dessert. And while dessert is being served or people are coming up to get their dessert, I'm setting up the slideshow, then we screen the slideshow, then we have to move this projector out of the way, and that takes a little bit of time. All these transitions that have technical setups take a little time, and then to have a third dance round, and then to have Birkat Hamazon, and then however you want to end it. If you want to end it with a little kumsitz, there's lots of different ways. But that's the general best possible schedule. It's the simplest, everything flows. And when I said dance round, you can fit in all these different kinds of things, right? If you want to have an uncles do a song, cousins do a song, family members, wherever you want to do, if you have greetings from other people that are on video, that I recommend kind of putting it in with a video presentation. That's the general outline. Now, if you're having other factors like a siyum or a guest of honor, there are many different factors that can change the general flow, but that is the best general flow. If you're having the event at a place where they're having like food, like a ulam smachot where they have courses that are already predetermined and you aren't working with an independent caterer who you can choose yourself, then you kind of have to work with their timeline because they take their pride in their food and they're not going to compromise. They're going to bring out their food at the exact temperature when they want it to come out, and so we just have to work around them. That's why I kind of recommend doing a bar mitzvah better off like at a shul hall or someplace where you have more control over the variables. All right, that's the overview. Now, what does that mean? That means that before we have our meeting, it's really good idea for you to decide what's your starting time and your ending time based on the factors I told you. Decide along with your caterer and your budget and your preferences what kind of food courses you're going to have. I don't recommend having plated food where the waiters come and serve you and offer different courses. Or do you want a fish like pargit, or do you want this? I don't recommend that for several reasons. If you want to know, you can ask me. And I do recommend a buffet or a family style where waiters will come and put like a big plate of food for everybody at the table on the table, and people will kind of take from that center plate. For various reasons, but I'm not going to get into that now. I think this is a good point at which I'm going to say one or two more things, then I'm going to turn it over to see if Sarah, if you have any questions. So the one or two other things is when I talk about dance rounds / activities, everybody's different. Some kids want an activity before the dance round because they have anxiety about dancing. Some kids don't want to have any dancing and they just want to do like a game show for this and maybe a Kahoot for that, which is a whole different topic if we talk about Kahoots. Or they want to have, different relay races and no dancing. So when I say dance round, I kind of mean in parentheses. Usually when parents are hiring me, it's because parents definitely want to have a dance round, and some kids really want to have nothing but dancing. So when I say dance round / activity, there are a lot of activities to choose from that are in-house activities. That means things that come from the menu from Holy Simchas that don't have any additional costs, like a game show, which is basically 20 questions about your kid. I can send you a template, and you can just send back the correct answers with a smiley on it. And if your son or daughter wants to have that as their activity, they may choose to be the one reading the questions and kind of put on a game show host face, or they may want to be the person who picks the kids who answer. And sometimes people go, well, how exactly are you going to run it? That's kind of just leave that up to us. And that's one of the things that you get to really enjoy the party and be like a guest at your own party when you have us as your DJ MC, because we're going to masterfully do it. Don't worry about how we're going to do it, how we're going to make announcements, how we're going to manage to have a party where the adults are having a good time and the kids are having a good time. That's what you're hiring us for, and that's what we have all those great 5-star reviews on Google for, and Facebook reviews on Facebook for. You can just really rest assured that we're going to take care of it. What elements are we going to have? That's something that your son or daughter gets to have some input on. If they really want to do a singing performance themselves and they want to provide us with a playback, these are all options. And then there's some add-on options that we have if we have to bring extra equipment, like a giant ball or a giant inflatable puppet or different things like that. So consider if there are other things that your son or daughter, maybe in a separate video I can explain what some of these options are, and they can watch that video and they can say, oh, this kind of appeals to me, this kind of doesn't. There are a lot of YouTube videos that kind of demonstrate these things that I could point you at. People sometimes say, do you bring shtick? Do you bring giveaway stuff? I generally don't. If you are going to bring, I say don't get anything that makes noise, like whistles or noise blowers. You can get those hats. A lot of the stuff kind of ends up in a landfill, so I prefer to kind of ease off on the amount of stuff that just gets, sometimes kids wear hats for just a second, but whatever speaks to you, we'll utilize it. I do bring reusable props, like a giant jump rope, and that makes a great limbo stick, and this game jump over a nachash ba, and I use these reusable props to make the dance floor become alive and meaningful. Sometimes I'll bring costumes, but if you want to bring that stuff, you're welcome to, and I'll give it out. You just give it to me, and I'll give it out in the right moment. If you're going to bring anything that's glow in the dark, realize that stuff is only really fun and effective if you're going to turn off all the lights, and that you have to really have a good relationship and the right relationship with the adults at the party if you're going to do that, and you can do that at the end. One thing you can do is have Birkat Hamazon and then tell the kids there's going to be an after party with lights out. We're going to have like the DJ lights go out wild, and they might enjoy that, and louder music, louder than the adults like. It's a good idea to have one person from your party who's going to decide how loud or soft the music should be from your perspective, and I'll work with that person, meaning I might turn it down if they say it's a little loud. But we do have to have it at a certain critical volume level, so it cues the kids and the adults that it's time to party, and it's not just background music. So we do want to make it a certain amount of loudness, but you don't have to worry about being too loud, because we pride our reputation that we don't play too loud as opposed to some other DJs. I feel like these are the main touch points. You want to know who's giving a speech and what speeches are going to be, and if you want to do a slideshow, I can send you information about how to prepare that slideshow for our projector. If you're using an in-house projector, then that's another conversation we gotta have. So all these are the touch points. Now, when it comes to the music selection, you can kind of give me general guidelines if you have specific songs you want. And there are oftentimes some. I think there's one coming up where they want Scottish music this week. It's always something. And some people say, no, just keep it, just know we want Dati Leumi or Haredi. We don't want the oi oi ois too much, and we don't want the, or we're Sfaradi, or we're Moroccan, or we want Hina, we're going to have costumes, whatever you have input, you're welcome to give that input. Generally, I tell people, let your kids do the kind of Cotton Eye Joe and Bubble It line dances at the end, especially, because that's really the highlight for them. And I have censored versions for anything that has words that seem to be demeaning to women, and they're just listening to the beat. I'm pretty strict with what music I play, and so when it comes to music selection, and oftentimes people say, we just trust you. People say, what are you going to do on the dance floor? I've got videos about that. The dance floor is a whole other topic. I don't want to overwhelm you with the dance floor now. I just want to end with one more thing before I turn over to questions, is in terms of my MC style, because I'm not just the DJ, I'm also the MC. That means I can make announcements that you don't have to, right? And instead of everybody coming up to me one by one saying, where's the bathroom? I can welcome people to your event. If, you know, sometimes people haven't been there before, they want to know what we call housekeeping announcements. I can make an announcement about the schedule and let people know what's coming up, because people really like to know what's coming up. I don't get people completely quiet when I make announcements, because you're the guest of honor and you guys are the ones for whom the people should be completely quiet. When I'm making announcements, make sure I get just general attention. I don't want to become like, you know, everybody be quiet and listen to me now at all. And when I get general attention, I make some of those, you know, here's what's coming up on the schedule announcements. I think I covered all the bases I said I would. I'm going to add one more tip, because I like to just drop in tips to make your bar mitzvah more fun, memorable, and meaningful that it would be if had you not heard these tips, like the one about iced coffee, is it's nice to print up a schedule. And, you know, you can give one to your DJ, one to your photographer, one to your caterer, and also print one up on a foam board. And you can have that by your sign-in board or by the hors d'oeuvres table. And that gives people kind of a sense of what's coming up, because people often want to know, and that's one thing you can also take off your plate as people come up to you throughout the event going, oh, when is the uncle song? Oh, when is this? When is that? And for some of the slots, if it is a surprise for you or your child or somebody in your family, you want it to keep a surprise, you can just write surprise in that time slot. We'll make adjustments to the timetable in real time. Sometimes people just have a lot more guests come. This happened last week. And they were just welcoming their guests again and again, and more guests kept coming in piecemeal, drip by drop by drip. And so we pushed off the dancing by at least an hour, and then we maybe cut the grand entrance. So I know I've dropped some nomenclature here, some terminology like grand entrance. Maybe I said metzeged or slideshow or things like that. Of course, I'm in the middle of writing the bar mitzvah encyclopedia, so if any topic you want to look up, you can just hyperlink, you know, click a hyperlink and find out more about that. But for now, this is just an orientation for you to know what you need to know in order to make our party planning meeting the most effective. And as I said before, if your son, daughter wants to join on the beginning of that meeting just to meet me or Rivka Dina, whoever from the Holy Simcha team is going to be the director of operations, so to speak, or the MC DJ at the event, then that's fine. And then they can go off and we can finish the timeline and the music type. All right. Now I'm going to turn over to any questions. That was a very thorough 18-minute presentation. Sarah, you have any questions?
Yeah, well, first of all, that was really wonderful and really helpful in terms of a lot of the tips, a lot of things that I hadn't thought about. So thank you for that. Really, I just had one question, and this was that we'd spoken to a caterer, and he said once you put out dessert, people kind of take dessert and leave. So I was wondering, how do you deal with that? Because you said to do dessert and then afterwards matzeget and another round of dancing. So how do you deal with
awesome, great question.
Dessert and people not leaving?
Great question. So dessert, again, I'm going to come back to the metaphor of the punctuation marks in the paragraph. So like if people think, okay, the dessert is they think about it like aliyot, right? You have like the sof aliyah, right? And then there's like a sof pasuk and there's a sof aliyah. So and then there's like the sof of the kriyat Torah. So dessert is not the actual. Some people think like that smachot go in a certain formulaic way that people know that this means it's time to leave, whether that's Birkat Hamazon or that, and it's really not that way if we do something called signposting. Signposting means, as your MC, and you could do this if you prefer, is to let people know what's coming up. So if we say, don't go away, we're going to be serving dessert, but don't go away because we're in store for the slideshow or this, and you're not going to want to miss that, then people will know. If we don't make any announcements, then yes, people might see dessert come out and think it's time to leave. And this is kind of what distinguishes Holy Simchas, is we really kind of are an American style presentation. If you had a, and I've been to friends' bar mitzvahs where it's so different. Just to help you understand, what an Israeli DJ will do is they'll just turn on the microphone and leave it on. So whoever wants to come up, if it's a child, a bar mitzvah of the friend of the bar mitzvah, will scream into the microphone, Mazal Tov, or the parent just kind of like want to walk over and speak kind of next to the microphone and not into the microphone. It's a very different style. What we do is I don't have the perfect wording for it right now, but we're gonna signpost to your guests.
Okay, that sounds great.
Great.
And, I think that's all the questions that I have. I'm looking forward to the meeting.
Amazing. Okay, great. And you feel like you're set, you know what to do for preparing yourself for the meeting?
Yes,
Great.
I think
Okay,
this
so
is quite thorough and really helpful.
I didn't want to overwhelm you, but let me ask you, are you doing, let me just demonstrate now what like this, what parts of that do you not yet have in place?
In place, like we have the caterer and we have the hall and I have the start time and end time, but that was like very helpful to know, okay, come prepared, with that and all the factors.
Okay, great. So let me, so let's go ahead and do it. Can you, do you want to draft it up on a Google Doc? Or in a note on WhatsApp? But let's start. If this is a good time for you, let's start drafting it out. If you've got those pieces of information.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you're still like recording.